Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at rockets, rocket tactics, rocket salvos, and of course sort of when to use what for particular types here. So we have a pretty straightforward scenario for us today. You can see we've lined up a bunch of targets along the lovely coast of southern Portugal here. And when I think of rockets, of course, I always think of everybody's favorite, the Sukhoi 25. Because the Sukhoi 25 is a Russian air-to-ground aircraft, kind of like an A-10. Again, I could have done the A-10, I could have done the Apache for this. But I specifically chose this aircraft because it carries a comical number of rockets. If you notice here, for example, pepper spray on the left carries these little tiny 57mm rockets, but it carries 256 of them. There are very few things in this game that you carry 256 of, much less several. We also have, of course, kicking up, we have Octopunch here. I use packing the more common one. There's 160 S8s. S8s are kind of sort of in the middle. They are heat rockets, so they're a little bit better against targets that are armored. Of course, we have concrete argument here. He's packed in the S13B. This is getting a little bigger. These rockets are much, much larger. You can see they have a little bit more of a kick when they do hit things. It's about a 6-kilogram warhead on this thing, so quite a kick up here. But then, of course, we get the comical rockets. We have one-hit wonder here, of course, with the S24B. You'll notice that this rocket is 38.25. It is a massive 25-kilogram warhead. And if that weren't enough, of course, you have OP Police Nerf, and you can see he packs the absurd 266mm rocket. Look at that, 87 damage points. Now, for you, you're sitting there going, well, that doesn't really mean anything to me. Well, let's go take a look at something real quick, shall we? Let's go grab ourselves that iron bomb real fast. Let's grab ourselves a Mark 82. As you can see, a Mark 82 is only marginally more powerful than the largest of these rockets here. Now, the interesting thing with rockets is the fact they're not very accurate weapons. And for anybody who's ever played a flight sim, everybody thinks they can hit a tank with a rocket. The reality is you're probably not going to get it unless you're cheating and using something like the Vickers rocket, which is laser guided, or using APQuiz, of course, which is also laser guided, which actually works well, but slightly disappointing. Maybe we'll take a look at those later. So what we're going to do is kind of take a look at the general tactics here and kind of get around things. But there's one thing I need to address right away. I'm going to take pepper spray down here. He's looking pretty good. He's got 256 rockets. And I'm going to say, hey, pepper spray, do us a flavor and go ahead and go right after that group of trucks on the left there. Pepper spray is like, yeah, no problem. Give me a second. So you can see he's rotating. By the way, I've got them already at 3,000 feet. I have them at 3,000 feet for a reason. You'll see why in a couple moments here. So pepper spray is going to come lining himself up. He's looking out the window. He's looking through the thing, and he fires one rocket at a time. Now, you're sitting here with your brain going, what? Why would you do it that way? I just unloaded an entire, not really. You unloaded 8 rockets of your 256. In my mind, they're charging by the rockets right now. So you're sitting here going, oh, that doesn't make sense. There's something wrong with my WRA. So let's go take a look. So I'm going to go pop up my WRA real quick. Here's my 57mm rockets, and I go ahead and pop that sucker open. And what you'll observe here is, nope, it's set correctly. It is designed to go ahead and have the system default of firing all weapons at a time. The problem is, it can only fire each one of those rockets internally so fast. So when you watch those great videos, when you watch the airplane diving in, and it unloads like 256 rockets as fast as you can snap your fingers, we just don't have that. We have the ability to basically squeeze one off every once in a while, of course, depending on the type. Now, this extends a little bit, too. So, for example, if I were to grab let's go grab blue real fast here. Let's go zoom back in. Let's grab something in the middle. A concrete argument here has 40 of these lovely 122mm rockets. If I were to take a look at kind of the default WRA on these, there we go, the 13B. You'll see it's also configured to one weapon here. So if I were to say, go ahead and shoot it, and this would be an absurd exercise. Let's get a 122mm rocket and shoot it at a bunch of trucks. Fun story, by the way. Did you notice the fact we get these little numbers in the corner? That's how many units is left, in case you're ever curious. I don't think I've ever actually addressed that in a video. So there are actually 4 trucks down here, 3, and then, of course, 4 in my tank platoon here. So concrete argument is coming down here, and you'll notice it's the same basic story. He's basically unloading a single rocket at a time and probably making quite a mess of the ground around this guy, although I think we did just get a direct hit. He's going to pass right over the top. It did not matter in the end. He went and had blasted that thing. So you're sitting there going, okay, so how is that going to impact the way that I approach things? What am I going to be using these rockets for? How am I going to employ them effectively? Well, there's a bunch of things that are going to change how effective a rocket is. The simplest, of course, is going to be the size of the warhead. Then, of course, we're going to be looking at basically the range at which you operate them. So if you take a look at pepper spray real quickly here, again, we're firing the S5s. These are Again, any rocket will cut you in half, but keep in mind that these things are pretty small, relatively speaking. And notice it has an effective range of about about 1.3 nautical miles. You can see that range pretty much out there. Basically, not quite 2 kilometers, if you want to kind of have a general idea. Now, the crazy thing here is not only are you dealing with the problem of being able to hit a target horizontally, but you also have to consider it vertically. Now, if I were to quickly open up our little page here on rockets here, you'll see that our launch altitude is considered 10,000 feet here. That is above ground level, about 3 kilometers up if you're looking for a specific altitude there. Now, you're probably sitting here going, where'd you get 3,000 feet from? That's not like a standard altitude. Well, most of the time when you read the literature, it always talks about 1,000 meters, basically being a kilometer up for these strikes. And that's actually pretty fair. That does a pretty nice job of kind of giving you an idea of what you need to do. So the key thing here is this is already basically optimum range for this weapon. You could definitely take it out a little bit further for it if you wanted. But again, if you're going to do that, you're basically saturating the area. So we're already more or less at optimum range. Now, some of you are like, well, I want to, well, why make it more optimum? Okay, I'll make it more optimum if that's what you like. So I'll come up to here and I'll actually have the range. Now you're sitting here going, why would you do that? And you'll notice you can't. There is no having of the range. The range is the range on this weapon. That's just the nature. Now, when you get up to the hilarious 266 millimeter rocket here, you will notice none of these have adjustable ranges, which means the only thing you can do to control how accurate a rocket is going to be your altitude. Let me show you what I mean there. So let's go ahead and grab this guy and pop him up to, I'm going to go up to basically 3 kilometers here. We'll do 9,000 feet. Yes, I know that's not 3 kilometers. Get over it. So what we're going to do is we're going to order him to do an automatic attack on this fellow over here on the left. There's actually some really comedic things you can do with this, but don't worry about it. Go ahead, climb up Pepper Spray. And again, I think you can guess why I called him Pepper Spray here. All right, we're going to pop you right up to 9,000 feet. Isn't that so much fun when you do it that way? Notice, by the way, that my rockets have a longer effective range. That's not unusual at all because I'm up so much higher. And you can actually see here, it goes up to 2 nautical miles now that I've got this extra bit of reach. And again, you can see the arc of that basically right to here. So now that I'm up a little higher, I'm going to go ahead and order that automatic attack that I did before. Now, what we're doing here is we're going to be exchanging the fact we're going to get more rockets off in exchange for the fact that we're now at a higher altitude and we have reduced accuracy. So unfortunately, our fellow here, as he's coming in, you can see he's got a bit of a dive going, about 3 degrees. That's a little shallow. You'll notice he's going to get off an awful lot of rockets until basically he has to pull himself up. And you can see he's at 0 degrees pitch, and they all come raining down. And if I zoom in a little bit, you can see my spread is, it's not awful. Again, the other thing you'll notice is because we got that extra, basically half a mile of range there, we were able to get off another 7 rockets. But you'll notice the difference in accuracy is very, 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 very substantial. So if I were to go grab this one again, we got twice as many rockets off this time. But let's go ahead and reduce that altitude down to that 3,000 feet you saw me do earlier. And watch what happens this time. And again, all we've done here is we're trading horizontal distance for a little bit better accuracy. Now take a look at what happens here. Fire. Delightful. Well done. Well done. Good job, Pepper Spray. You'll notice Pepper Spray only got off 8 a minute ago. We got a heck of a lot more. We got 15 rockets off at 10,000 feet. But what you'll observe here is my truck vehicles have been shot up pretty bad. And again, they've taken quite a few hits here. These were mostly near misses. And anybody who's ever done any work with rockets knows the fact that a near miss is considered a good day. And again, why do they call it a near miss? Shouldn't it be a near hit? But that's just me. So now that you kind of have that concept in your head, let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when you spread it across the caliber of rocket here. First of all, you got to realize that Pepper Spray here isn't going to do much to a hardened target. So for example, if I'm like, hey, Pepper Spray, go against my tougher ammo bunker here. So the good news is Pepper Spray is going to have a really easy time hitting something that big. Actually, you can see he took a couple freebies as you kind of went by here. Hey, we're going for this one. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate the fact he's being an overachiever. And you'll see the fact that we basically took some opportunity shots. I mean, they were there on the way down. So, like, why not do it, right? But if I were to go to God Eye view mode, you will notice the bunker took 0 damage. It literally didn't even scrape the paint on this thing. So that rocket just does not work for it. So one of the things you probably notice is I'm using Eastern designs here. And the reason I chose that is because whereas the kind of Western philosophy for almost everything is to come up with, something in the middle that can kind of do everything, the Eastern philosophy is we have a different tool for different jobs. So as you can see, our little Pepper Spray, this thing is fabulous against infantry formations because it could just keep going over and over and over, which we'd never do in the real world, by the way. Good way to get a man pad basically shot up your tailpipe there. But the reality is we can get away with it in this game. So pepper spray here, worthless against anything that has armor. But if you have a bunch of infantry in the open, pepper spray could just one of these guys could defeat an entire division. Now, the interesting thing is when we get a little bit closer to, I call it kind of the NATO size rocket, which is kind of this 80 millimeter. And again, it depends on which American rocket or Russian rocket, British rocket that you're dealing with. But generally, between 60 and 90 millimeters is kind of the sweet spot there. Now, this is a slightly bigger rocket, but what is fascinating about it, let's go ahead and lock on an ammo bunker again, is again, all we've done is add a little bit of extra weight. Again, slightly bigger warhead. But look what happens when we go up against our friend the ammo bunker this time. Oh, opportunity shot. I mean, I appreciate the effort. It was a good trick shot, too. There it is. All right, take a look. We scratched the paint. And that's one of the important things you have to realize is that if you're going to be using these little teeny tiny things, even the 80s, you're not going to do anything to anything that has any real armor. Now, the interesting thing is those are considered the small rockets of kind of the Russian rocket family here. Basically, these two here, you got, like I said, you got your 80, you've got your tiny little 57. The standard rockets, like the one that kind of gets the job done, is when we're dealing with 122 millimeters and up. Now, one of the things you probably noticed is the fact that these all turn green. That was weird. But the reason, actually, I know why they turn green. So the interesting thing here is that when I look at this one, you'll notice my 122 millimeter rocket sounds suspiciously like another rocket that happens to be fired from a truck because it's essentially the same rocket. Again, same limitations of accuracy, but we have 40 of them, which allows us to get away with some really, really fun tricks. So let's go ahead and tweak my view a little bit here. I'm going to try to center it up. I love the little 3D view, but man, it can make it a little tricky to line things up. So let me show you a fun trick here. So I've got everybody in a line here, and I'm going to select all of these units at once. Actually, I think there's one that I'm not allowed to engage. Which one can I not? I can't shoot at the runway, I don't think. Oh, nope, it's not going to let me do that either. Okay, good enough. We're going to target the mobile targets. Let's grab my rockets, and I'm going to go ahead and allocate. We'll keep it simple here. We'll go 4 rockets each. So we're going to go fire off 12 rockets here. You know, while I'm at it too, we might as well do inconvenience these guys too. Let's see here. You'll get 4 because I'm feeling generous, and you'll also get 4 because I'm feeling generous. All right. Now, the 122 rockets, this is a bigger rocket. Obviously, it's almost twice the size. The thing you have to remember about it is you carry less of them, and it's actually a less accurate weapon. I know this sounds silly, but your speeds are totally different when you're dealing with things that are a little bit heavier. Now, for those of you who've ever tried to use these, like a DCS or something like that, you're probably very familiar with the fact that when you pull things like this, you hit some of them, and usually you run out of time and you run out of room. You'll actually see here that as we're doing our little line here, we blew the BTR out of the way because we actually hit it. Going against the T-80, we're barely able to strike it. Taking our shots against our ammo bunker on the surface there, you can see we hit it a couple times. And of course, you can see our runway here while we struck several times as a concrete argument kind of goes ripping by here. Now, if I open up my guide's eye view, you can see we did a little bit better than scratch the paint, but it was also a very, very clean hit there. And our runway actually got damaged really, really badly because runways are so big, you basically can't miss them with a rocket. And that is one of the reasons why they opted for even larger rockets. Now, this is where it gets really comical. So the big rockets, these are your 240s and these are your 266s. These are big rockets. And these are your anti-runway and anti-big building rockets. They're not really supposed to be used against ground targets. Like you'll notice I only carry 8 of them here. This guy here only carries 8 of them as well. Again, 266s are only slightly bigger. And one of the things I find really fascinating about these weapons is if you open them up, they're both going to be let's see here. I believe I don't want to make a lie out of me here. Yeah, they're both 2 nautical mile weapons with the same general idea. But the cool thing is, this has got a nice little proxy fuse, which makes it just slightly more accurate. So let's go ahead and grab One Hit Wonder and just kind of show you. And again, this group here, the 122 concrete argument there, that is kind of the generic, I can do anything with a rocket kind of a rocket. These 2 folks over in the corner, they're great against big soft group targets, especially if you're in the open like we are here. These 2 are really designed to wreck runways. They're really designed to wreck buildings. So for example, if I grab One Hit Wonder here and order him to attack the ammo bunker, I'll grab OP Please Nerf, and I'll go ahead and order him to attack the runway. Now remember, these weapons were designed... Ooh, where are you going, OP? Did I break something somehow? I'm pretty famous for that. I did break something somehow. Typical. There we go. Actually, I don't think he's allowed to engage the runway. Not allowed to engage the runway? Oh, that's right. I can see my mistake right away. Let's go take a look at our WRA here. Let's go to my 266 rockets, and it says do not use against what? That's a little strange. I'm not going to lie. It seems a little strange in my mind. The reason I find that a little strange is because that's basically what this weapon's designed for. Unless, of course, it's the silly, which fuse is this? Which fuse is this? Hang on, it's a high explosive airburst. Okay, so that's the fuse. It's basically designed to blow up an area. Parked airplanes is the absolute winner. So disregard OP Preely's nerf here because he's going to disappoint me. Because, yeah, we're shooting at a runway with it, but that's not really what it's supposed to be. That warhead is specifically designed basically to explode over an area. All right, one-hit wonder. This is a huge weapon. Look at this. I can click on this thing. It's so huge. That gives you an idea. All right, so you'll see several of our weapons malfunctioned. We came through. We got a nice clean hit there. Oh, fly over the top. We're going to do a little BDA as we fly over, and you can see how this chap's like, I'm not firing anything at that. Are you kidding me, my friend? It's a runway. It's a runway. Just shoot the runway. It doesn't matter that you airburst. There he goes. Look at the size of this thing. That's what I'm talking about. There we go. Fantastic. Looks like we got some freebies as we went by, too. All right, let's take a look. So our ammo bunker, as you can see, we did some damage to it. And again, we barely even hit it. And when I open up the little hit log, you realize I didn't actually hit it. Coming over here with the runway, that's a lot of damage. And again, if I came by, especially with, where is he? Where'd he go? Octopi, yeah, right, that'd be pretty hilarious. Where are you, where's one hit wonder here? Ah, here he is. Oh, he's out of ammo. Oh, well, we'll play with that in a minute. But what you can see here is we probably missed a lot. As a matter of fact, if I go to weapon endgame here, this one's so nice. I like this one. You'll notice a couple of them hits. The 240s mostly missed, and by missed, 60 feet. And again, that 60 feet's really good. I've got a really talented pilot if we can keep it within 60 feet. That's not bad. And keep in mind, I'm at optimum altitude. Now you're sitting here going, okay, so I kind of get the theme. I get it. So basically, the big rockets use against ground targets that don't move. The little rockets, just use them to absolutely spam anything that's dangerous, that's soft. It's like, yeah, basically. But one of the things I find really, really interesting about rockets, other than, like I said, the fact you can't spam them all in one long salvo, at least not right now. They'll probably change that in the future. But one of the things I really, really get a kick out of with any rocket is the idea that you can get a perfect hit if you get as close to the target as possible. Now, you're sitting there going, okay, I think I know where you're going to go with that. Yeah, you're right. So let's go ahead and grab my favorite OP Please. Actually, we'll grab this one. One hit wonder, honestly, I think is like the best here. I'm going to order him to go down to minimum altitude. Now, you're sitting there going, why would you do that? Actually, it's too low. Let's do like 500 feet. I think that's enough. Let's go ahead and make that AGL too, because we're basically ripping around. I'm also going to reduce my speed. I'm going to stack the deck a little bit here. So we're going to be very low. We're going to be very, very slow. And our goal is to try to do as much damage as we possibly can on my flyby here. Now, the interesting thing is because you're going to be coming in so much lower, you're going to have less time to actually fire the weapon. You'll actually notice as I come down in altitude that my actual range is decreasing. Remember a few minutes ago, I was showing you the fact that, when you're coming in, when we did high altitude, we got to drop the whole rack on them, but we basically missed half the time. And then at 3,000 feet was more or less optimum. Well, you'll notice here, when I start getting a little low, again, we're going minimum fire range here. We're down to 1,000 feet. We're not very high off the ground here. He's going to have to use his TFR. He's going to have less time to fire the rockets off. So you can see what do we got here? About a 1.6 degree dive, bunch of hits, bam, 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 bam. He actually got his whole rack off. I'm pretty impressed there. You get an A today. You did a nice job. You'll see it actually worked okay because basically what happened is we didn't have a lot of rockets and we had really big rockets. But again, if we were trying to get as many rockets on the target as we can with like a little pepper spray over there, you would notice that we'd not have been nearly as successful. Now, one of the things I was talking about earlier was the concept of the guided rockets. Now, some of you say, isn't it a missile? I'd say, shh, don't tell anybody. But one of the things that both the East and the West came up with is realizing that those rockets are kind of hard to use. And if we just increase the precision just a little bit, we can do a lot more damage. So one of the things they tried to do pretty early on is actually use the lovely Vickers missiles rockets. And these are pretty cool because basically what they are is if you want to think about it another way, they're kind of data linked, little line of sight limited miniature missiles. And they're absolutely fantastic because you can see they've got the tandem warheads, which makes them extremely effective against armored units. And they're also really, really accurate. And if you come down here, you'll notice my CEP is 2 meters, which means I'm very unlikely to miss. It is also a command-guided weapon, which means we need none of that shenanigans when it comes to things like using laser-guided weapons. Now, this is a pretty interesting weapon, and I had to use it because you just got to see this thing in action because it's just so curious. All right, so I'm going to grab everybody. I'm going to grab it. Oh, you're going to be a jerk to me, aren't you? I'm going to give you get a missile, and you get 2 missiles, and you get a missile, and you get a missile. Now, this is kind of fun. Now, let me go ahead. Actually, it's a good position. I'm going to set him to loiter speed here, because if I set him to loiter speed, he basically has more time to take the shots. Now, check these little things out. They're little Fisher-Price rockets. But the crazy thing is even though the warhead on this thing is so tiny, the reality is that each one of these is so accurate that it almost doesn't matter. So you can see here we have the 3 BTRs basically chilling. We have 1 missile, and bam, that creamed one of those BTRs. You got to imagine this thing just slamming in 1,200 knots, just crashes into the side of it. Now, the crazy thing is, even though these things are so tiny, we've taken a shot at our bunker. See, notice we're able to get a few of these off at a time. Where are you going? Where are you going? I guess you can't fire me. I quit. So, of course, as you probably noticed, until we turned away and basically lost the ability to take our shot there, that we were able to basically get direct hits, which made them even more effective. So as we've seen, rockets are effective weapons. Little rockets basically get down 3,000 feet is kind of the sweet spot. Shoot as many of them as you can. The bigger rockets, again, 3,000 feet is pretty optimum. If you go up a little bit higher, if you're using guided weapons, you can go a little bit lower if you're using less of them and you want more of a kick. Enjoy.